At 0530 local time in Ukraine, an FP-5 Flamingo missile the size of a school bus screams off a truck trailer. It drops to 50 meters, turns east, and settles in towards one of Russia's most important weapons factories. 4 more just like it race in behind. Unknown to the crews packing up their launchers, Russia has put one of its most valuable assets up to stop them, to prevent an attack that could destroy Russia's long-range fire capability. If you look here at this missile, you can see this is a Frankenstein that flies. A jet engine borrowed from a Soviet-era trainer hauls the whole airframe along, buried deep in the tail. And set flat into the spine, a gray disc the size of a dinner plate. The one piece of this missile Moscow should actually be afraid of. They fan out as they run. 5 headings, not 1, because 5 flamingos arriving from 5 different bearings are way harder to sort than 5 flying single file. A Russian radar operator watches his dish sweep the horizon and hand him nothing, so he leans in closer. A return flickers at the edge of the scan. Faint, low, wrong. There in a heartbeat, then gone, then back. 3 years of hunting drones taught him the shape of a lie, and this is one, but he calls it up the chain anyway. A flickering radar is a radar that is trying to tell you something. 2 things are hiding that missile from him. The first one is the curvature of the whole planet, bent just enough to matter. Radar travels in a straight line. The Earth doesn't. Watch the missile hold 50 meters off the deck. That's the whole trick. It's tucked behind the bulge of the world, the curvature of the Earth rising up between it and every ground radar for 100 kilometers around. An S-400 can swat something 400 kilometers out. That's LA to Vegas. But it can't shoot what it can't see. And it won't see this one until the missile is 30 kilometers away and nearly in its lap. The second thing is the missile's own skin. What little radar clears the curve mostly punches straight through. The fuselage is wound fiberglass, not aluminum, a shell that absorbs the pulse instead of bouncing it back, well, most of it anyway. One catch, and it's a funny one. The engine housing has to be metal to survive its own heat, so a bright coin of a return rides the spine all the way east. Quieter, but not invisible. Before the morning's out, that difference gets 2 of them shot down. The dish sweeps past and finds only fields and sky. The flicker is gone, the missile with it. Not shot, just gone. Running for the deep interior on a course drawn not to be clever, only to be low. But low is expensive. Flying down where the air is thick, that old trainer engine drinks fuel it was never built to burn, and the meter's running with 900 kilometers still to go. 200 kilometers south, one Flamingo's dogleg clips a missile battery's engagement zone, and for once, the radar holds the track long enough to shoot. A 2-ton interceptor catapults out of its tube, lights its motor, and tears toward a mile a second. The launch roar rolling across a town that was asleep 10 seconds ago. It tips over and dives, and 40 meters above the Flamingo, it bursts into empty air. A wall of steel raking the sky above a target that just slid out from underneath it without a scratch. S-300, the long-range workhorse of Russian air defense. It just got beaten by the ground itself. The interceptor threw away cost more than the missile it whiffed on. Tax rubles at work. The whole miss is one part in that interceptor's nose. That 48N6 never has to touch anything. Its warhead packs 143 kilograms of high explosive wrapped in thousands of pre-cut steel fragments, and a little radio fuse fires it the instant a target drifts into range. The cloud blooms 40 meters up. A whole storm of steel shredding a patch of sky the Flamingo hasn't reached yet. That fuse got fooled. It listens for something the size of a fighter jet, and down here it can't tell the missile apart from the ground 150 feet beneath it, so it reads the dirt and fires early. The S-300 was built to down jets and ballistic missiles up high at altitude, not something mowing the grass. That low blind spot is exactly why Russia poured a fortune into the S-400. The Flamingo grinds on, indifferent, unaware it was ever shot at, and every second it spends dodging one battery down in the weeds is another gulp of fuel it can't get back. Down in the bunker, the crew that waited 3 years for a shot this deep watches their one chance bloom over an empty field. The commander keys the mic, calls the miss, and calls another round. Hands steady, jaw not. Farther up the belt, a radar snaps a lock and twin 30mm cannons whirl around onto the bearing, barrels rising as the firing solution hardens. 3 seconds from a burst, the lock breaks. The barrels drift off the bearing, tracking nothing. And a missile the crew had cold slides past and keeps going. That's a Panzer. Think of it as the bouncer at the back door, a truck that marries a radar to a pair of rapid-fire cannons and handles whatever slips past the big missiles out front. It did everything right and still came up empty because the missile never once gave it a still target to hold. He didn't lose it to a mistake. Ukrainian jamming didn't do it either. He lost it to trigonometry, the one kind of geometry you can't jam, can't spoof, can't outbuild. A tracking radar doesn't care about shapes. It hunts movement. Anything closing faster than the dirt behind it lights up bright. So in order to choke off the roar of all that ground bouncing back at it, the radar dumps anything sitting near zero speed, writes it off as dirt and ignores it. A narrow notch of deafness, right around not moving. And this Flamingo's course happened to run crossways to that Panzer, sliding across the beam instead of driving at it, so its speed toward the radar fell to nothing. Same reason the car cruising past on the street never trips your garage door sensor. It's moving, sure, just not toward the thing watching for it. For those few seconds, the fastest thing in the sky read as motionless as a fence post, and the filter swept it into the trash with the weeds and the water towers. The missile didn't do it on purpose. It can't do anything on purpose. The planner who drew that dog leg on a map back in Ukraine just happened to draw it across the beam. 5 missiles crossed the border and 5 are still flying. Every one of them trading fuel for cover, mile after low mile. Like a guy driving 30 miles out of his way to dodge a $2 toll. None of that matters to the thing waiting up ahead. It isn't on a ridge. It's parked at 33,000 feet and has no horizon to beat. 90 minutes out, 10 kilometers over the Volga, the A-50's rotating radome sweeps a patch of empty night and paints a hard return where nothing should be. It holds bright and steady, where 3 regions worth of ground radar finds only black. The operator has it at 200 kilometers, clean, and he has it for one plain reason. He's looking down. He's staring from an aircraft Ukraine has spent 2 years trying to put on the bottom of a lake at a missile with no clue anything's up there hunting it. He keys the net. New track, low and slow, heading 075, passing to control. Somewhere below, a MiG crew's morning just got interesting. They've been alert since midnight, engines warm. The aviation version of waiting up for a teenager an hour past curfew. Meet the Beriev A-50, Russia's flying radar post, the one NATO calls mainstay. Circles up here around the clock now because 2 years of Ukrainian strikes chewed the ground radar network to scrap, dish by dish, until this one airframe became the country's last set of eyes over a continent-sized country. From up there, there's no bulge of the earth to hide behind, just open air between the rotating dome on the A-50 spine and the missile on the deck. And a big fiberglass bus with a hot metal engine paints just fine against cold ground when you're staring straight down the throat of it. The man in the ditch sees a wall 2 meters away. The man on the hilltop sees the whole valley and every moving thing in it. Watch what the controller does next. He doesn't reach for a fighter. He reaches for a phone. He hands the track to a ground control station, and the station starts walking an interceptor onto the missile with its own radar switched off, silent, emitting nothing, steered entirely by the A-50 overhead. And the part that should feel deeply unfair? A fighter jet carries a receiver that screams the second an enemy radar locks it. The Flamingo carries nothing of the kind. No receiver, no warning, no clue the MiG even exists. It holds its heading, flat, level, obedient, while a 30-ton interceptor slides into the sky behind it, like a car merging into a lane a sleepy driver never bothered to check. The MiG doesn't chase it. It cuts an angle, swings wide, then hauls back in hard until the Flamingo runs almost straight down to its nose. An R-37M drops off the rail, lights, and screams away at better than 5 times the speed of sound, closing the gap before the missile can fly past the edge of a trap it was never built to see. First contact, a flash on the deck, and one of the 5 missiles simply stops existing. The jet banks, resets, hunts, and 40 seconds later does it all over again. 2 of 5 gone, both of them flat and level to the last instant, because flat and level was the only thing either one ever knew how to be. The MiG-31 is what you get when the Soviets build a jet to do one thing: run down low-flying cruise missiles. Russia's fastest interceptor, Mach 2.8, and it just did exactly that. Its pilot never even saw the thing hit. He fired on numbers the A-50 fed him, watched a diamond wink off his steering cue, and rolled to hunt the next one. The swing wide looks like showboating. It isn't. Sideways, the Flamingo sat in the exact blind zone that beat the Panzer on the border, so the controller walked his shooter around the sky until the crossing target became a closing one, dragging it up out of the notch into a clean, bright lock. And the missile he fired earns every ruble right here. The R-37M Seeker is built to reach down into all the ground noise and pick one slow, low target out of it, a rifle shot from the next county over, at a target that never hears the trigger. 2 down, 3 still boring east. So why did those survivors live? Because even perfect coverage runs into simple math. 1 A-50, 1 MiG. With a finite rack of missiles, it spends one target at a time. And this isn't a quiet night. Hundreds of FP-1 and Luti drones are crossing into more than a dozen Russian regions at once, some of them cheap decoys shaped to throw back a return the size of a cruise missile. Each one costs less than a used riding mower and still forces a decision on an interceptor worth more than a house. Up in the A-50, the threat just jumped from 3 names to 300, and tonight, Russia is short on shooters. While that MiG worked the 2 Flamingos it could physically reach, the other 3 drove 100 kilometers deeper into the dark. They slipped into a wedge of sky no interceptor could swing to in time. The cheapest things in the air tonight just bought the expensive ones a clear road, by being everywhere at once, and by not being worth a single missile apiece. The 3 survivors don't know they made it, nothing aboard to tell them, no data link home. So they just fly the line somebody drew for them, down toward the Volga cities and closing on a wall of interference built to shove them off course with nothing but a counterfeit signal. 180 kilometers out, the 3 survivors cross into the thickest electronic murk on the whole route, and every satellite receiver over the Volga starts singing the same counterfeit tune. The forged fix says the missiles are drifting south of course, sliding toward open farmland 40 kilometers off anything worth a warhead. They're not. All 3 hold 50 meters off the deck, arrows straight, and not one shades a single degree off heading. This is spoofing, the clever kind of attack, not brute jamming, seduction. A GPS signal falls 20,000 kilometers to reach the ground, and by the time it lands, it's a whisper, quieter than the background hiss. A receiver only hears it because it knows the exact tune to listen for. That's the gap every spoofer pries open. The jamming crew never shouts over that whisper. They imitate it, pump out a stronger, flawless fake, and gently walk the receiver's idea of where it is off to one side. The antenna drinks it in, and the missile follows wherever the fake fix leads. It doesn't work on these 3, and the reason is that flat gray disc set into each missile's spine, the one from the opening shot. A controlled reception pattern antenna, a CRPA, and it's not one antenna, but a ring of them wired to a single brain. Think of a man at a loud party with 16 ears. He can plug 15 of them at once, aim each plug at a different loudmouth, and keep the last ear open for the one voice that matters. The jamming crew ends up shouting into a cone of pure silence, while the real satellites come through clean overhead. And there's the whole electronic war in one number. 16 ears go deaf in 15 directions at once, and not one more. Aim one extra spoofer at it, then it has spare ears, and the math runs out. Down in a jamming truck, a crew watches their perfect counterfeit sail out clean and change nothing. The missile has quit listening on their side of the room. That antenna is why the plant up ahead is minutes from getting torn open. It's the exact thing that plant builds for a living. The shop that keeps every Russian warhead pointed where Moscow wants it, about to take its own invention through the roof. The factory in Cheboksary makes the Kometa antenna, Russia's own version of the very disc keeping this Flamingo straight, and stamps them out by the thousand. It's why Russian drones and missiles still punch through Ukrainian jamming to hit apartment blocks. Every time Ukraine fielded fresh jammers, Russia bolted more ears onto those antennas to beat them. The null bites, the real fix holds. The gyros counting every turn since launch quietly hold the line underneath. 3 missiles punch out the far side, noses still locked on Cheboksary. 90 seconds out, 16 kilometers from the wire, a canister on a tracked vehicle inside the fence coughs a missile straight up on compressed gas. The launcher rocks back on its treads as the missile clears the tube. Then the motor lights and it screams away. The interceptor tips hard onto the incoming Flamingo, and the lead missile comes apart short of the fence line. Fiberglass and burning fuel tumbling onto the trees outside the wire. The Tor M2. NATO calls it the A-50 Gauntlet. A short-range interceptor built to guard one site and nothing else, parked inside the perimeter, waiting for exactly this. The crew almost missed it. The Flamingos didn't come in from the southwest, where Ukraine sits. They came in from the northeast, overflying the whole region 170 kilometers out, sliding past near Ulyanovsk, then hooking back to run in from a bearing nobody had a gun pointed at. That fuel the low road kept eating back at the border bought this exact move. A 1,000-kilometer flight stretched past 1,500, Chicago to Houston, 1 liter at a time. A $500,000 missile burned its whole fuel margin to slip past the deepest air defense belt on Earth for one thing: surprise. A blind missile can't improvise, so the whole detour got baked in on a laptop hours before the trucks rolled. Low and flat, no diving arc to catch on the way down. It handed the Tor crew seconds of warning where a straight-in shot would have given them minutes, almost enough. That Tor still did what an S-400 battery worth $500 million couldn't manage all morning, and the reason is where it's parked. Every trick that carried the Flamingo 1,500 kilometers was a way of not flying at the radar. But the last radar sits on the target itself, and the target is the one thing this missile has to fly straight at, head on. The notch is gone, the Doppler is huge, and a missile doing 850 an hour paints hard and steady. Right system, right geometry. But the Tor's radar rides just a few meters off the deck, so its reach against a wave skimmer stays short. A dozen odd kilometers, a handful of seconds to clean track, and 2 more missiles are already inside it. Behind it, the second Flamingo throws itself away, and nobody lays a finger on it. It crosses the fence line, noses toward the main hull, and drills into open ground 100 meters short, flinging up a crater and a column of dirt and absolutely nothing else. 100 meters, that's the 14-meter CEP, circular error probable. Draw a circle around the bullseye just big enough to catch half your shots, and that's your number. 14 meters in clean air on a good day, and this is neither. That antenna spent the whole final run wrestling the spoofers on the missile's own position. It won by enough to keep the thing flying, not by enough to keep it sharp. The fix drifted a few meters. A few meters became 100. Cheap guidance. Honest miss. The price of cranking these out by the 100 instead of the handful. And now the math is down to a single Flamingo. 1 missile, 1 aim point. One last thing standing over the target. A net. Look at the towers ringing the main building. 15 of them, thrown up since the last strike and laced together with heavy anti-drone mesh. Russia strung it up to catch the quadcopters and light drones that gutted this plant before. It stops a 50-kilogram quadcopter cold. Tangle, sputter, drop. Nobody has ever flown 6 tons into one at 800 kilometers an hour. In about 4 seconds, everybody finds out what happens. 30 seconds. The last Flamingo comes in flat and fast. The whine of that old trainer engine rolling ahead of it across the rooftops. 10 seconds. The tower line rushes up to fill the sky ahead. 5. 6 tons of missile hits the mesh and drives straight through it without shedding a single kilometer per hour. Punches through the roof and buries 1,150 kilograms of warhead deep in the building before the fuse, held back a deliberate fraction of a second, lets go inside. The net might as well have been a grocery bag stretched across an interstate. All that mass doesn't argue with a net. It files a complaint on the way through, and the walls meant to stop the warhead become the thing that traps the blast. Nowhere for it to go but straight in. Brack, it heaves up off its foundations, then folds inward upon itself. Windows blow out across Cheboksary as a column of smoke climbs into the morning. The same smoke half of Volga will film on their balconies before the fires are anywhere near out. Every Shaheed that finds an apartment block, every caliber, every Iskander, every glide bomb, they all need the antenna that was built in that hall. Moscow can rebuild the machines. It can't rebuild the months. And somewhere in Ukraine, The crews are already loading the next 5. If you enjoyed this video, then watch this one, where Ukraine obliterated a port Putin could not afford to lose. Bye for now.